Welcome to Climbing the Pocket Network's In the Huddle, where your favorite Climbing the Pocket personalities get together and talk all things Minnesota Vikings.
All right. We made it, y'all. We're here. We got no David. We have no fancy backgrounds and all that other stuff, but we're here. We're live. We got a couple folks watching. We got the chat up and running. I got the crew here with me, and we're about to do this thing. My man, Myles, how you doing? How you been? How's it going, man?
I'm good. Just, third week in my new job. So I'm just, down in the grind.
I mean, every time now I feel like the angle on your camera just gets shifted like a little bit more.
It shouldn't be too different. It was the same last week.
It's a little bit more, but new job, new camera, new setup. I feel you. And we got Flip with the new cut, rocking the Vandy. How you doing, Flip? How you been?
I'm doing well, doing what I can, repping my Vandy boys. We're good in baseball. We got that going for us. But I like this setup. I like this. I like Jason. Jason's on his toes because it's like class with the substitute teacher right now.
Yeah, no, I can't let David down, Like, I feel like he's watching all these videos. David is judging the jankiness of the setup. Yes, David, we're using Zoom for our live stream, not Ecamm or Streamlabs or OBS or any of the things we should be doing. We just had to do what we could do because we tried those other things and my laptop was not up to the task. So, it's where we're at.
Already apologizing. And then we got Myles with the 2-ply in the background. We got a live shot of the toilet paper.
Oh shit!
We got some 2-ply. We got the treadmill.
I didn't even
2-ply or 4-ply.
That's funny.
Myles got a new job. Myles is going. He's maxing out the ply. It's only 4-ply around the Gorham crib.
Upgrade.
Oh, facts. First thing you upgrade.
Well, let's jump in. Let's talk about it. It is the off season, and typically there's not much going on, but we got some news today, and it's news I think a lot of us were kind of expecting, but it came anyway, and it's obviously I'll let Flip kick this one off because it's the longest tenured member of the team, no longer with the team, upstanding player. Even though you could say he's slowing down on the field, did a lot of great work in the community. Kyle Rudolph. No longer with the Minnesota Vikings. Talk to me, Flip.
Yeah, a great career for Kyle Rudolph comes to an end with the Minnesota Vikings, reportedly looking for a larger role in the office as he continues his NFL career. And no matter where he lands next, he'll be thought of and he's a memorable player here in Minnesota. We're talking 10 years. 453 catches, 4,500 yards, and 48 touchdowns, including that game winner against New Orleans in the 2019 playoffs. Kyle Rudolph's the 10th all-time in receiving yardage for the Minnesota Vikings. He's second among tight ends behind Steve Jordan. He's fifth in receptions and touchdowns. So just easily the second best Vikings tight end of all time. And up and down career as far as wins and losses and where the Vikings, how they fared in the playoffs. But I think Kyle Rudolph, you can say that he gave it his all, both on the field and in the Minnesota community. So salute to Kyle Rudolph on the way out the door.
All right. And Skull Clifford, what's up? How you doing? Thanks for watching. And Myles, what are your thoughts? You're still, in the community. You're around. What are your thoughts? How's it playing out locally with Kyle Rudolph? Being all that he was in the community. And he started to voice some displeasure about how he was being used in the offense and different things like that. So I guess first you can tell your thoughts on Kyle Rudolph, the player, and his career with the Vikings, but then kind of spinning it forward to, this offseason and, his thoughts on his role and where the Vikings go now. And, is this going to affect, the product on the field in any material way or anything like that as you kind of think about what this means for the Vikings as we roll things forward?
Yeah, I'll say I've said a lot of negative things. I've talked a lot of shit about Kyle Rudolph the player, and that's not. And he's been a good player. I'm not trying to diminish his like impact and the things he's done for the Vikings on the field. I'll never say a negative thing about the dude off the field in terms of like his community engagement, his outreach to charities, like that stuff. That's on lock. Like that dude's, he's killing it with that. And I think he'll still have that impact here. It sounds like he's not planning on like uprooting his family. My guess is in the next few years, it might be one of those like rental type situations, but my guess is Minnesota is his home, which is a good thing. I mean, I think he's, done a good job of integrating himself into this community, but yeah, I mean, I think for the Vikings moving forward, the one thing that they're going to miss is a reliable guy, like a guy that he's going to catch the football. Like Kyle Rudolph's got some of the best hands we've seen in a Minnesota Vikings uniform in a while. I mean, he's as reliable as it gets. He's the kind of guy that, you kind of wish Kirk Cousins would have taken a little bit more chances with him a little bit more in situations. Rudy's not the type of tight end that's going to create a lot of separation, but he's going to create a lot of contested catches, which he's really good at. And I think at times you saw Kirk not willing to take some of those chances where you saw quarterbacks in the past take those chances with Rudy. So I'm sure that frustrated him. And then being asked to block a lot more was, I get it. I mean, I get, that's not even his skill set. He's never really been a good blocker. Like that's not so like being asked to do that. I mean, the one thing I'll say is it'll probably help prolong his career because the older he gets, the better at blocking he's going to have to be if he wants to continue a sustained career. So I think that's a valuable thing for him. But no, I think there are plenty of teams in the league that could use a player like Kyle Rudolph effectively and give him a little bit more opportunity than what he was getting in Minnesota. So, wish him all the best. But I think it's time. I mean, Irv Smith, you drafted him in the second round back in 2019. He's shown some promise, hopefully, some injuries aside and some more opportunity. I think Rudy was definitely holding back some of his progression. And I think it's time. It's time for Irv to get that opportunity. I also think Tyler Conklin as a tight end too. That makes a lot of sense. I think he's done a decent job. I'm not saying Conklin's going to be better than Kyle Rudolph, but I think he can help supplant some of the opportunity that Rudy had. But maybe this means Irv Smith just steps up and creates a bigger role. Where I'm hoping what this does with Rudy going away is what we saw was it kind of felt like they had to play Rudy. They had to put Rudy in situations to be on the field a lot. And I'm not saying he was like limiting the offense, but what that did is it took away opportunities from Irv Smith, but it also might have taken away opportunities from like another wide receiver that the Vikings could have used and utilized more often. And I think now maybe they, instead of the approach of, well, we need to go replace Rudy, maybe they go and use a more dynamic player to replace some of that opportunity as well. So I'm hoping that's the direction they go. Irv Smith's a dynamic tight end, but at the same time, that doesn't mean they need to still run out 3 tight ends and 2 tight ends all the time. Maybe that just means they use Irv in a more creative way while also adding another dynamic weapon.
All right. Well, we've done we've done the classy thing. We've talked about this from a football perspective, but it is the off season, and we're going to take our content wherever we can get it. And as Ryan has pointed out in the comments, and has so many have pointed out on social media, Kyle Rudolph thanked a lot of people. He had a lot of names in his farewell letter, but there was one person in particular, and as Myles pointed out before we started recording, the quarterback with whom he played the most did not get any love from Kyle Rudolph on the way out the door. Flipmazzi, talk to me, man. What are you making of Kyle Rudolph's cold shoulder to Kirk Cousins on his way out the door? Do you think it's anything more than Kirk didn't throw Kyle the ball, or do you think there's something else that maybe had been festering below the surface for a little bit longer?
This isn't that complicated. I mean, you look at Kyle Rudolph's career arc. He came in behind 3 veteran receivers. He grew into a starter, and then he put up 2 elite seasons where he was basically, I mean, the guy was getting 120, 130 targets, 80 80 receptions per season. And so his career arc trajectory was really upward all the way. He was becoming a premier player in the NFL. And then Kirk Cousins shows up and the guy's back to like a 500-yard, 450-yard guy. So I'm not surprised by that. To me, it just speaks of the issues with the offense and with the quarterback, which for some reason we don't get to talk about openly without saying negative things about the team. But there is, and there has always been, a divergence between the skill players on this offense and the offensive system. So we saw it with Stephon Diggs, and now we're seeing it with Kyle Rudolph. And again, people don't want to talk about it, but it's clearly there. We don't use our skill positions like we should. That's what you see when you see Kyle Rudolph not thanking his quarterback, because yes, he played with that quarterback the longest, but guys like Sam Bradford were actually throwing him the ball. He was actually a contributor. He was a main piece, and he just wasn't that. He hasn't been that over the last 3 years.
So I guess, and again, we got to talk about the things that we get thrown out here. Kyle Rudolph is seen as a class act on and off the field, but a lot of what you're talking about right now, Flip, feels a bit petty and also feels a lot like some of what we were told makes a player selfish earlier this offseason. So help me understand like that dichotomy, and that, Kyle Rudolph is a good guy. I think everyone agrees Kyle Rudolph, good guy on and off the field.
Yes.
But him, because of what we would call like, individual stats, his wanting to produce on the field basically iced out Kirk Cousins in his farewell letter. I mean,
Diva.
I don't think
selfish?
I don't think he did it on purpose, but yeah, if you want to talk
Oh, snap. No. Hold up.
You think he purposely was like, nah, I'm not going to thank Kirk Cousins?
100%. How do you go through it? How do you make a thank you list and leave off the one player that you've played with the longest at quarterback?
The word count, man. The word count. He couldn't fit it in.
Man, miss me with that.
Look, you want to call Kyle Rudolph selfish? I have no problems with that. You want to call Stephon Diggs selfish? I got no problems with that. The issue has always been the means by which they display their feelings of how they're used. So, what got people with Stephon Diggs were the antics, was the fuming on the sideline during the middle of a playoff game, was the just not showing up to practice some days, the interaction on Twitter, which some people don't like about Kyle Rudolph as well. But you have to admit that the two handled those situations very differently, and that goes into the perception of you amongst fans.
That's fair. I'm just here stirring the pot just a little bit. So Stephon Diggs, now Kyle Rudolph. Do you think we have anything at all to be concerned about with, players seeming to not be skill players, the players who would, be the ones who spend the most of time around the quarterback, not really seeming to ride hard for that guy? Like with all the other stuff that we talk and like, like the stats, to this, to that, but like, is that an issue? Myles, you played college ball. Like, is that, draft day, people didn't go to his birthday, like we joke about that kind of stuff, but is that really a thing where like, that's something we need to worry about? Or are these guys professionals and it actually doesn't matter at all if anyone likes Kirk or if they think he's a herb or whatever it might be? Kirk throws the ball, everyone's going to make it work come Sunday because they're pros.
So there are definitely players that think he's a herb. Like, that's facts. But it can be okay. I think that's fine. I don't think that has to be an issue. Where it becomes an issue is if you're not like good enough. Like you can like an Eli Manning, for example, got away with being a herb for all those years because that dude won 2 Super Bowls, right? Like he got slack. You could cut that dude some slack because he won. Kirk Cousins hasn't won enough as a player, as an individual player. I know it's a team sport, but like overall, quarterback drives wins. Like it's what they do. That's that's why they're highest paid players. That's why they're the most important position in sports. It's because they drive wins. It's because they're the ones that should be driving those things. They're not the sole reason, but they should be the biggest reason. And so I think a part of that, but also on top of that, I think the offensive philosophy is the biggest. I think that is the biggest issue in the room. I think that's the biggest reason you'll see a lot of players have issue with where the offense's direction is going, and especially the pass catchers and those things. But Kirk, the person, I mean, everything we've heard about Kirk, he's only business. He's strictly business. He's like very much like has some of that like robot type mentality when he's on the field and in the practice room, in the practice facilities, all those things. So I think there's some of that. And so I think maybe some of his personality doesn't always come out. He's not really like, one of the guys, you want to go grab lunch, you want to go hang out in the locker room, you want to go, go grab a drink, something like that. Like Kirk's probably not the type of dude you want to go hit up and say, hey, let's go chill. He's just not that kind of guy. And like, again, that's okay. But when your quarterback is also kind of that like robotic type, winning has to come behind that, I think. Because if you're not a likable like personality, you better be backing up in another way. And I'm not diminishing Kirk the player. I think Kirk's a really good player. I think Kirk's played well, but I just think some of that personality doesn't always mesh well with some guys. I think, if you can't go up to him and be yourself, you can't go up to him and just have a real conversation without it feeling like forced or feel like it's like you're talking to the CEO of a company, or you're talking to like a lawyer, like those types of feelings. Like if a teammate's giving you those types of feelings, you're definitely going to feel some type of way about him.
So Flip, I have a question for you, because Clifford raises a good point in the comments, basically saying that, maybe Kyle's mad at the wrong person and it's really Dalvin Cook, not Kirk. Like Dalvin Cook took his targets because, Dalvin came in, he emerged as more of a threat in the passing game, and Dalvin Cook is dynamic with the ball in his hand. So like if you're Kirk Cousins and you have an opportunity to make a short pass and you have Kyle Rudolph or Dalvin Cook, like who are you throwing the ball to? Is it maybe just that we had a better pass catching running back who just basically cannibalized Rudolph's targets?
I wish the stat said that. I wish the stat said that we did better throwing to Dalvin Cook than throwing to Kyle Rudolph, but that's just not true. I mean, the Vikings led the league in success rate on throws at tight ends for 2 consecutive years, and they still just refused to incorporate that as part of the offense. And that's the issue with Kirk Cousins. Being a quarterback is hard, not just for all the things you have to do between the whistle, but in the huddle, during the games, in practice, you've got to manage your skill players as well as the coaches who are calling in the plays. And I think what we miss here with Kirk Cousins is that when the receivers are coming to him and saying, let's mix this up, when the tight end saying, hey, I'm open, Kirk doesn't incorporate that to any of his conversations with the coaches. He's got the guy on the green dot. He's the guy who can call an audible at the line of scrimmage. That famous play where Pat Mahomes comes to the sideline during the Super Bowl and draws up that wasp play to Tyreek Hill. We just don't see Kirk doing that for his players and for this offense. He's working through the motions when we've got guys that we just aren't utilizing enough. It'd be great, whether you like the guy or not, it'd be great if Kirk would go like look at the stat sheet and be like, holy crap, every time I throw it to Kyle Rudolph, I'm getting a first down. And then the next game they go out and throw it to Kyle Rudolph some more. It'd be great if, that deep connection that he's got now with Justin Jefferson, if he goes in this offseason and convinces the coaches, look, we need to do things differently. But Kirk doesn't really seem to have that vibe to him. If he got it, I think there'd be unstoppable parts of this team. And so we really look for Kirk Cousins to grow in that way.
All right, Myles, quick shot to you. Who's replacing Kyle Rudolph's production in the red zone?
In the red zone, I mean, Adam Thielen did a lot of that this year. So I'd say I'd probably continue with Adam Thielen, Conklin and Irv Smith, a combination of those two. And then obviously I would expect Justin Jefferson to have a bigger role overall in the offense. So I mean, a combination of those guys. And then if there's anyone else, let's say they bring in a wide receiver 3, let's say they draft somebody, expect someone else to come into the mix a little bit more. But And then Dalvin Cook, like to your point, Flip, I think everybody talking about like into the comments. If they want to continue to use Dalvin Cook the way they have, he'll just continue to see a lot of those red zone reps and those opportunities in the red zone on the ground. So, maybe Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen are probably the top two guys.
Mhm.
All right,
Yeah,
and Flip, I just had one question for you as we kind of wind things down on Kyle Rudolph. Where should he go? Like, what team looks like a good fit for him, his skill set? He's not going to be, super dynamic, getting a lot of separation, but he's reliable, red zone target. Like, where does he fit? Where should he go?
That's so hard for me to tell right now. And, I think that's one of the reasons why the Vikings had to cut him, because it's hard to see how he fits into the modern NFL offense. But I will say, Kyle Rudolph has a very big decision right now, whether, he goes and tries to find that bigger role for himself in the offense, or whether he's Super Bowl focused. He did apologize to Vikings fans for not bringing the Super Bowl to Minnesota, which I love to hear from a player. We'll see if Kirk Cousins says that, when his time comes. I don't recall Stephon Diggs saying anything like that.
Bro, players don't have to apologize for
thank
shit.
You. So thank
Tight
you,
end
Kyle
wins.
Rudolph. But Kyle Rudolph is not the only veteran tight end that's going to be cut or is going to be on the open market. I think, number one, it's going to be competitive and it's going to be hard for him to find that expanding role he's looking for. And I'll also say I don't love the Vikings tight end room right now. I think a third body there is definitely needed, whether it's the draft or free agency. But with the amount of tight ends that might hit the open market, it'd be nice for Minnesota to get one on the cheap and supplement what Irv Smith and Tyler Conklin provide.
Ooh, Tyler in the comments talking about Rudy to Kansas City to chase the Super Bowl. I mean,
that's not an expanded role, but it could happen.
Not an expanded role, but
is he going to go and play there for pennies or what too? Like,
yeah, it'll be interesting. It's like if it's the money or if it's the winning that he decides to go after at this stage in his career.
Like JJ Watt.
JJ said, "Give me all my money."
JJ Watt saying he's going with a Super Bowl in Arizona.
Give me all my money.
That's
Y'all
like
gonna need this moment if the Cardinals make some noise.
That's like going to Minnesota and saying you're going to win a Super Bowl. Come on now.
Speaking of the money, another thing that made headlines, Myles, I think you dropped this in our group chat. Anthony Barr, who's a player that, as Luke and others have pointed out, is an misunderstood player in terms of what he brings to the Vikings, to the defense. I think sometimes we look at the box score and, people say, well, Eric Wilson's just as good, when clearly the Vikings defense overall, when one's on the field versus the other being on the field, shows that like Anthony Barr's impact goes beyond just those counting stats. But Anthony Barr said, I'm not taking any kind of pay cut. And, people felt some kind of way about that, Myles. So I guess when initially it was that he didn't want an extension, but I mean, who wouldn't want an extension? That's more money. It's generally some more guaranteed. So it's really, he just doesn't want to take a pay cut. I guess, what are your thoughts on the Anthony Barr situation? How do you see it actually playing out? Would you even want to give him an extension?
No. So I'm with you, Jason. I think there's a lot of things that Anthony Barr doesn't get enough credit for, that doesn't always show up in the stat sheet. Mike Zimmer talks about it all the time. We've seen, people in Vikings Twitter bring it up. They talk about it. They've written articles, or they've shown like GIFs and things like that, videos, just highlighting those situations. But for me, I mean, the Vikings have so many other opportunities to create cap space in 2021 right now that, in my opinion, where Anthony Barr's contract currently sits, I don't want to create another opportunity where you lose leverage down the road if I'm the Vikings. So looking from the Vikings perspective, I think since they're such a top-heavy roster, you need to keep some flexibility with future contracts. And I think you can't always pay Peter to rob Paul later, like whatever that phrase is called, right? Like Anthony Barr's situation right now, he's got a big cap hit. I think it's $15 million, 15,062,000, whatever. That's a big cap hit, but the net gain, if you were to cut him, isn't big enough to make it worth it. Like you cut it in half, so you gain like 7.5 back, but getting that 7.5 back doesn't warrant enough of what he does to find a way to replace him, just to free up cap space. So yes, it's a big cap hit in 2021, but you don't gain enough to like make it a like legit move to cut him. And so for me, if you were to restructure him, so let's say you converted some of that base salary into signing bonus, all that does is just continue to kick the can down the road and makes it harder to cut him later, because then the dead cap rises. And so for me, I think the best solution is to just leave him alone, because Anthony Barr has quite a bit of leverage right now because of those reasons that I kind of listed. Like, he's still a solid player. I know he missed most of the season last year, but he's still a good player for what he does in this defense. Like, he knows it, and Mike Zimmer knows how valuable he is to that defense. So this is his last chance as to have this leverage to say, I'm not taking a pay cut for you guys. Like, for what? And so, like, if the Vikings came to him with an extension, I'm sure that's a different situation, but I don't think they should do that either. I think they should just play out his situation now and go into 2022 looking at his situation with you get a lot more cap saving. I think it rises to like 10 or 11 million in cap savings in 2022. Keep that flexibility, because if you need to move on from somebody in a year, that's an opportunity to do it. You could plan for that now by drafting a guy, let's say in the middle rounds, as like a potential replacement for Anthony Barr, and have them in the door right now that they can learn, so that you're not just cutting Anthony Barr in the future just to say see you later. You got to have a plan in place as well. So I think, keeping that flexibility is really important. And I think, like I keep harping on, it's such a top heavy roster that, if they give a Riley Reef and a Harrison Smith extensions, some of those guys down the road, that flexibility kind of goes away for the next year or two. So you need to keep some flexibility with some other guys with high cap hits. So Anthony Barr to me is that perfect example. Eric Kendricks doesn't have a big enough cap hit to really be that big of a deal. He's playing above the current contract anyways. Danielle Hunter's another one of those guys. There's no way they're going to get away with not giving that dude a new contract at some point. So it's all about flexibility at that point. And so you don't want to restructure or extend everybody just to create current cap space. You got to keep some of that flexibility down the road as well.
Talk to me, Flip. Anthony Barr.
Yeah, 100% agree with Myles, which is rare. So if y'all are watching, you're witnessing a rare moment in the Huddle history right now. But it drives me crazy how, people you hit the offseason and some fans just only want to look at numbers. They only want to look at the cap hit. They're just trying to create as much cap space as possible. The most important thing about the offseason is you need to realize that free agency is one of the most inefficient, toughest ways to build a team. So the Vikings could be sitting on 50 million right now, and they still could mess it up just like 30 out of the 32 teams in the NFL do every single year. And everyone's all obsessed with this winning the offseason type crap. Whoever wins the offseason is never in the running for the actual season. So when
the
you
Bills
talk
did
about,
pretty good last year.
Sorry,
the Bills did a pretty good. I agree with you in the sense of just throwing money at
like a word.
Tampa Bay would like a word. I agree with you in the sense
Tampa
of
Bay nailed the draft.
No, but I mean they got Tom Brady. But again, so where I agree with you, Flip, is like throwing money at free agents and make it. And
let me finish my point.
Yes,
let me finish my point. My point is, if you cut Anthony Barr to save 5 or 7 million, if you cut Anthony Barr and you spend the exact same amount that you saved on a linebacker, that linebacker is going to be worse than Anthony Barr. If the Vikings wanted to bring in another $5 million tight end to replace Kyle Rudolph, that tight end is going to be worse than the tight end they just cut. So you're not cutting to create room to create a player for an equal value. You're cutting because you can save cash, but you also have a player behind them who can replace that. and replace that production. So the fact that we're comparing Anthony Barr and Eric Wilson is ridiculous. But even if you wanted to compare Anthony Barr and Eric Wilson's a free agent too, which means that there's no option to really save anything and improve your team through that cut. So there's no reason to do anything with Anthony Barr. That money is relatively well spent compared to the other Vikings options at that position. That's the end of the day. It's that simple.
And if Eric Wilson was under contract in 2021, moving on from Barr would make more sense.
Right.
Because at least like you can say there's a drop off from Anthony Barr to Eric Wilson, but at least you have someone that has a level of potential and ability that could replace Anthony Barr if you needed to save that money. So I'm with you 100% on that, Flip.
Yeah.
Raymond says that Kirk needs to restructure. Flip, what would you say if you were putting like percentages on the chances of Kirk Cousins restructuring to make life a bit easier for the Vikings this offseason? Where would you put that?
I would tell Raymond that to put himself in Kirk Cousins' shoes. So, Raymond, all you got to do is wait 1 week and you are guaranteed $45 million. You tell me what you're going to do, Raymond. It's a 0% chance that happens. All you got to do is wait a week. Boom. You know you're going to get $45 million.
Well, and where's his leverage right now? Kirk doesn't need to create that leverage. Yes, he could create a longer extension for himself. And yes, right now, but like if Kirk just waits, like to your point, the Vikings can't cut Kirk. So like they can't afford to cut him. So he's just waiting for that time, the third day of the league year where his 2022 contract becomes guaranteed. So which is a $45 million cap hit. Going into 2022 is again where he gains more leverage again. Kirk Cousins has the Vikings exactly where he wants them from a business standpoint. And he's been doing that since he left Washington. He was positioning himself from that before then. I'll never fault Kirk for going and getting as much money as he can. That's every player's prerogative. And Kirk's finessed the game better than most because he's found ways to create contracts for him and his agent that they might help the team, but it makes sure that he's getting his. And so it's not like when he took his contract extension last year, like, yeah, he saved the Vikings $10 million. Woo, thank you for doing us a favor. When in reality, in 2 years, you're going to have a $45 million cap hit, but that cap hit's going to become guaranteed a year early. So, like,
yeah,
the Vikings also are at a point where if they continue to do that, Kirk's just going to continue to have them in shackles, and he's going to continue to have all that leverage. So, also, maybe Kirk wants to test free agency. Maybe Kirk wants to see what hitting the open market again would look like because maybe he's trying to find himself another fully guaranteed contract. Like, Kirk learned hitting the market as a top 10-ish quarterback will net you a lot of guaranteed money. Yeah. And so I think he's at a position where, like, what's the rush for him to sign a new contract? There is no rush for him to do anything right now.
If you're unhappy with Kirk's contract, or if you think that Kirk's play isn't up to the level of what the Vikings pay him,
trade him.
Then it's not about changing his salary. It's about changing his level of play. And that's what we do here on Climb the Pocket is we ask Kirk to be better. Even if he's good, then 100%. We ask him to be great. If he's great, then we ask him to be elite because that's what his contract demands of him. So it's not changing the salary number. It's changing what we see on the field.
Oof. I love that. Oh, facts. That's 100% facts. We need to raise the bar of what we expect our quarterback to be. Everybody talks about this left guard this and left guard that. We've harped about, yes, you need to be better than worst in the league. But like at some point, if you're going to be paying your quarterback the amount of money you're paying Kirk Cousins, he needs to elevate some places elsewhere. He needs to be better elsewhere to make up for the lack of cap space that you can't go and sign all the players around him. You're not going to, like when you're paying high level players, high level money, you can't always surround them with everything. So they need to make up for other areas. I'm expecting the same from Kirk. Like you got to make up in other areas, dude. Like it is what it is.
All right. Well, let's talk about the next lever for maybe finding some money. Maybe, I don't know. The safety position. You know, Harrison Smith is now the longest tenured Viking on the squad. What are we doing with him this offseason, Flip?
I'd love to extend Harrison Smith. That's where the talks are going. I think the only items I'd bring up that haven't already been talked about is number one. Usually when the Vikings are doing these extensions, they occur very late in the offseason. They occur in August during training camp, during the preseason. So it wouldn't surprise me if we just don't hear news on the Harrison Smith extension or the Brian O'Neill extension until later on in the offseason. That's probably not going to be an immediate cap saving measure. And then number two, as you talk about extending Harrison Smith, again, just remember all the extensions that are in the works. Remember that Brian O'Neill might be up for an extension. Remember that if you continue to see good play from Irv Smith Jr., you're just trying to balance all those contracts out over the next 3 years. So it's not as simple as just, extend Harrison Smith and everybody else will fall in line. You're trying to say, do I want a 33-year-old Harrison Smith or do I want a 27-year-old Brian O'Neill? Those are the types of balances that you're trying to look at when you're looking at extensions to save cap space.
Okay, so with Harrison Smith, then you're kind of saying that we should probably be a little bit patient then in terms of our expectations for when things do get rolled out. Look for something maybe a little bit later, one of those training camp deals where we get a bit of positive press, right? A nice little press conference later on when folks are back together versus something that happens immediately to maybe save space right now to go sign somebody new.
Yeah, the Vikings might do other things. You could talk about a Dan Bailey, Britton Cole quick cut. You could talk about a Shamar Stephen cut just to get through the next few months. And then training camp, that's when you sit down, getting the hype for the 2021 season. You announce that Harrison Smith has been extended. He intends to play his entire career in purple, and you head into the year with that knowledge.
Boom. All right. Well, I feel like the money stuff was really the main thing that we wanted to go through. And, Flip, you said the first time that it's happened in a long time around here, but, you and Myles agreeing, now you and Vikings Jerome agreeing, it's a wonderful day here on In the Huddle. Vikings Jerome also agrees. Kirk needs to step his game up. And we got some other folks saying that, Kirk's replacement needs to be in the building before this offseason is complete.
Ooh. I love the comments. We got to get some of these comments on the review in Apple Podcasts, man.
Oh, we
got to get the people voicing their opinions.
Yeah, talk to the folks, Flip. Tell them what they need to do.
If you guys are liking the content, we're going to be here all off season long. I don't even know if this is the end of the show. We're supposed to only promote at the end of the show, so maybe Jason has other things, or Myles, haven't heard from him in a while. But
my bad.
Go like, subscribe, give us that 5-star rating, and tell us what you want to see from Kirk Cousins in your review.
Okay. Well, we pretty much made it to the end. We talked about really all the money stuff that we want to talk about at this point. Only other thing that's out there is really Danielle Hunter. So I guess we can go through that real quick. I feel like everyone is on the same page. They need to give that man some money to make him happy. We saw the state of our defensive line without him. Myles, real quick, run me through it. Danielle Hunter, how do you think this plays out?
I think kind of it plays out like what we've seen from the Vikings historically. Adam Thielen was in a similar situation a few years back. He's playing above his contract. We saw Vikings fans being like, pay that man, right? Like, pay this man. I understand the only difference in the situation is the fact that he had a neck injury. But if he's cleared and he's good to go, there's no reason the Vikings couldn't restructure or redo his contract to give him more money. He's got very little to no guarantees left on his deal. He's still 26. So there's still a lot of opportunity there. And we talk about beyond 2022, the Vikings have a lot of cap flexibility. They don't have very many people under contract beyond 2022, especially high-end contracts. So We talk about, the opportunity would be now to do that for Danielle Hunter. So he's earned it. Like I said, as long as the med checks, check out and everything like that, and he's good to go, I don't see why you couldn't help yourself now by saving a few bucks and making sure he's happy and got his new money.
Flip.
Yeah, it comes down to the guaranteed money for Danielle Hunter. He only has the prorated bonuses. He has no guaranteed money left in his salary. So I think you can talk about extending him early with 3 years left in his contract. The worry I have, the issue I have, is when Danielle Hunter starts talking about wanting to be the highest paid defensive end in the NFL. And while
negotiation tactics, Flip. Negotiation tactics.
Like I said, I don't think that ask is realistic. I think that's just a starting point. But in no way, shape, or form do I think that the Vikings are going to pay him like the best defensive end in the NFL. And hopefully, him and the Vikings meet somewhere in the middle there. Maybe, put him in the top 10 where he's number 18 right now per over the cap. So yeah, sure, pay this man. But if he's talking about trying to be the number one defensive end in the NFL, getting paid like it, then I try to be player friendly, but that's just a situation where you got to wait and you got to test this guy and see how serious he is about demanding a $20+ million per year contract.
Okay, there it is. The comments agree. Pay Hunter, maybe not Kirk. So we'll run through it. So I think we have, farewell, Kyle Rudolph, best of luck wherever you land. We're not sure where that's going to be because
Seattle.
This offseason is going to be rough for a lot of veteran players. And there's going to be a lot of supply, maybe not as much demand as some folks were hoping. Barr, he needs to stay because cutting him really doesn't make as much sense as maybe it might look like on paper. Harrison Smith is going to retire a Minnesota Viking. And we got to pay Danielle Hunter.
Maybe what about New Orleans? New Orleans for Kyle Rudolph.
With what money? And for who to throw it to him?
It's not about the money. Expanded role.
I think in Indianapolis could be a fit.
Oh, yeah.
True.
Yeah.
True. Now that Trey Burton? Where's Miles' boy Trey Burton?
I did like Trey Burton.
Oh boy, flip with the
maybe we can put Trey Burton in purple
for cheap. I mean, yeah.
Bring back Bucky. All right. Well, that is it. That is all. That is our show. As always, viewers, thanks for coming and chilling with us. Flip, Myles, thanks for coming on. Listeners, if you listen to this at a later time, and this is normally where I'd kick it to David, tell him to play the music, but David's not here. So like Flip said earlier, if you like what we're doing, like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. And if you're listening to this later on, hit us with a nice rating in whichever podcast app you're listening to us on. And we'll be back soon. Now I'm going to fumble around here, try to find this screen so I can play the music and we can get up out of here.
Skol Vikes. We got the tight end talk with Myles and Jayson.
Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.